we are visiting the Los Angeles Science Museum. We hope you enjoy this short video.
The Mercury Redstone 2 was a suborbital spaceflight that carried a chimpanzee named Ham. It was launched on January 31, 1961, from Cape Canaveral, Florida. The capsule reached an altitude of 157 miles, 252 kilometers, and landed safely in the Atlantic Ocean.
The Gemini 11 spacecraft is on display at the California Science Center.
La cápsula Apollo-Soyuz se encuentra en el Museo de Ciencia de Los Ángeles como parte de la exhibición Desde, Space. La cápsula fue una colaboración entre la NASA y la Unión Soviética, y fue la primera nave espacial en unir los programas espaciales de los dos países.
The Viking landers were a pair of robotic spacecraft that landed on Mars in 1976. They were the first spacecraft to land on Mars and conduct long-term scientific investigations. The Viking landers were each about the size of a small car. They had a robotic arm that could be used to collect samples of Martian soil and rocks. They also had a variety of scientific instruments that could be used to study the Martian atmosphere, soil, and geology. The Viking landers conducted a wide range of scientific experiments. They took thousands of photographs of the Martian surface, including the first close-up images of Martian rocks and soil. They also measured the composition of the Martian atmosphere and soil. The Hubble Space Telescope is a space telescope that was launched into orbit around Earth by NASA on April 24, 1990. Named after American astronomer Edwin Hubble, It is one of the most important and versatile scientific instruments ever built. This is a replica 1/5. The Apollo Command Module (CM) suit was a pressure suit worn by the astronauts of the Apollo program during launch, spacewalks, and re-entry. It was designed to protect the astronauts from the harsh environment of space, including the vacuum, extreme temperatures, and radiation. Endeavour was the fifth and final operational space shuttle orbiter built by NASA. The first flight of the Space Shuttle Endeavour was on May 7, 1992, on mission STS-49. The mission was a success, and Endeavour went on to fly 25 more missions before it was retired in 2011. Endeavour was the fifth and final space shuttle orbiter built by NASA. It was named after the British Royal Navy ship HMS Endeavour, which was commanded by Captain James Cook on his first voyage of discovery to the Pacific Ocean in 1768. Endeavour was built to replace the Space Shuttle Challenger, which was destroyed in a tragic accident in 1986. The orbiter was designed with a number of improvements over Challenger, including stronger tiles to protect it from the heat of re-entry and a new cockpit design that made it easier for the astronauts to operate. The first flight of Endeavour was a success. The mission was launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida and lasted for 8 days. The astronauts on board the mission performed a number of experiments, including the deployment of a satellite and the repair of a damaged satellite. Endeavour went on to fly 25 more missions before it was retired in 2011. The orbiter made history on its final mission, STS-134, when it carried the last set of solar arrays to the International Space Station. Endeavour is now on display at the California Science Center in Los Angeles. The orbiter is a popular tourist attraction, and it is a reminder of the achievements of the Space Shuttle program. The Space Shuttle Endeavour had three main engines, called Space Shuttle Main Engines, SSME. The SSMEs were located in the tail of the orbiter and were used to power the shuttle during launch and ascent. They were also used to provide thrust for the shuttle's orbital maneuvering system. The SSMEs were fired in pairs during launch and ascent. The first pair of engines was fired for about 8.5 minutes, and the second pair of engines was fired for about 2 minutes. The SSMEs were also used to provide thrust for the shuttle's OMS during orbital maneuvers. The SSMEs were a critical part of the Space Shuttle program. They allowed the shuttle to reach orbit and maneuver in space. The SSMEs were also very reliable, and they never failed during a space shuttle mission. After the space shuttle program was retired, the SSMEs were retired as well. They are now on display at various museums around the United States. The construction of Endeavour was a complex and challenging process. The orbiter was made up of over 2 million parts, and it took over 4,000 workers to build it. The orbiter was also equipped with a number of new technologies, including stronger tiles to protect it from the heat of re-entry and a new cockpit design that made it easier for the astronauts to operate. The Space Shuttle Endeavour was built at the Rockwell International Spaceship Assembly Facility in Palmdale, California. The construction of Endeavour began in 1987 and was completed in 1991. The Space Shuttle Endeavour was transported to the California Science Center in Los Angeles in a custom-built carrier aircraft called the Shuttle Carrier Aircraft, SCA. The SCA is a modified Boeing 747 that was used to transport the Space Shuttle orbiters between the Kennedy Space Center in Florida and the various NASA facilities around the country. The journey from Kennedy Space Center to the California Science Center took about 10 hours. The SCA flew at an altitude of about 35,000 feet and at a speed of about 500 miles per hour. The SCA landed at Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, on September 21, 2012. The Endeavour was then transported to the California Science Center by a convoy of trucks. The Endeavour was placed on display at the California Science Center on October 12, 2012. The exhibit is called Endeavour, the California Story, and it tells the story of the Space Shuttle Endeavour and its journey to the California Science Center. If you're visiting Los Angeles, you can't miss the opportunity to see this latest space shuttle.